Okay, in that case, I will do introduction. Hello, everyone. Today is 24th of October. Uh, we today we have a next BIM expert experience exchange training. So today, Chris Ho from Singapore will have a special presentation about BIM quality assurance and model checking. We are recording that session, what everyone can see after. So Chris, please start your presentation and yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lexi, for that introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Uh, so what I'm going to share today is basically BIM quality assurance model checking. I'm going to share some of the practices that we do in the industry, and also from the point of a classroom learning on the pedagogy that we actually deploy in our school as well to teach both full-time and part-time. So at the end of this sharing, hopefully everyone will be able to explain the definition of BIM quality assurance and model checking, and distinguish the processes involved in BIM quality assurance checking model, and also explain the differences between Naviswork and Solibri model checker features as well. So now I'm just going to run through some of these items regarding about BIM quality assurance model checking. So run through what is quality checking, software for quality checking, and the typical kind of quality checking processes that is involved, followed by the project review software like Naviswork and Solibri model checker as well. So in Singapore, our building industry is actually very heavily regulated. We have fire department, which we call the FSSD bureau, and then we also have building construction authority that checks railing heights, building safety, handicap access. So it's under BCA purview, and also there is a submission to urban renewal authority where they check your area for submission in Singapore. There are a whole list of department that we actually submit when it comes to submission, and all the regulatory bodies would have to go through this BIM guide to understand what the submission process is all about, and then filter down to all the architects, to the engineers, to the contractors and the subcontractors as to how to actually submit their work to all the regulatory bodies in Singapore. So I just give you a quick overview of where you can actually download all these guides that we have. You can actually Google it up under, you can type in e-submission, BIM submission Singapore, and then you'll be pointed towards this particular website that we go to, and this usually come up, and you can just open up, and then we'll bring you to this website called the Cornet. This is where everybody submit their drawings for approval to the different departments. And in here, there is Singapore BIM Guide. So basically, before we actually deploy BIM in Singapore in 2010, we came out with all the different guides to help the industry as to how to submit their drawings. So in here, it specifies the different the content. It'll teach you how to do execution plan, what the BIM deliverables, how you collaborate with all the different quality assurance control that you need to do, and then it'll give you the different discipline of your BIM elements. So it's almost a 70-page document that teaches people who has not adopted BIM to actually go through the checklist as to how to actually deploy BIM in the company or to do submission. So in the BIM guide itself, there's also an e-submission, BIM guide e-submission. So in here, it will specify all the different guides. Say, for example, you have architectural requirements. It will tell you how to model your model in an architectural way. and even go down to the detail of how you actually use their submission template. The submission template also can be downloaded in different BIM softwares. There's ArchiCAD BIM templates as well. There's also Revit, and there's even a template guide to teach you how to do the submission. So for me, when I do this, I will download the guide from here, and then I'll teach my student how to do submissions to the authorities as well, to do a mock submission. So basically, that's what our agency does in terms of submission. So it's quite detailed. This is some of the overview to tell you the conceptual. This is part of the BIM guide. These are the architectural design. You need to show massing, topo, and will tell you what's the intended use is for. If it's preliminary, if it's detailed design, construction as built. It'll give you a very detailed aspect of features of what your model is supposed to do and what it is supposed intended use is supposed to be. So it's quite a useful document if you want to use if it's the first time that you're trying to do a BIM in an architectural manner. So it tell you the rooms. So it's all in the BIM guide. It's you can go down to the website and download for your own. You don't have to pay anything for it. You can use it for your reference. Now, for designers, when we do quality checking, usually for architectural model, it will involve some QA, structural model as well. When you do your MEP model as well, and when you do a coordinated model as well, QA is always embedded in every single model that we provide to all our stakeholders. So for contractors, same thing. We do our QA for our design model, for construction model, for subcon model, for as-built model, for our facility management model as well. So what are the types of goals to be conducted in terms of checking? So if let's say you're doing a model self-checking, what is there to check? You need to check your own model. The model quality is to ensure accuracy. If you are checking it for coordination purposes, obviously you need to class check between the different disciplines models like your Archi and your structure and your MEP models. And of course, you also need to do checking for versions because there are changes while you are doing your design. So we also do comparison between old and new models as well. So what are the subject that we look at? Data information, BIM element properties, physical information like your geometrical completeness, clash of elements, logical information, your building codes and other requirements, etc. So there are also subject where it talks about automatic check, rule-based check, numeric check, extracting and analyzing the numerical data, and then visual checking as well, visual checking by model viewer as well. So these are just very basic goals as to what we are supposed to check. Now, when it comes to this kind of facilitating of checking, this is a graph that when I was studying at the academy at our building construction academy. So this is a graph that was provided in their notes. And once you have determined your owner project brief, your authority requirements, and you ascertain the existing conditions, plus what kind of IDD or BIM technologies that is required, plus the construction costs, and then you go into and then you start to pass all these requirements to all your stakeholders, which are architects, your structure engineers, your MEP engineers. All this will be given to them and they will come up with their own models, and you'll do a design coordination together, and eventually you will merge it as a merge model. Then you go for a clash, and if you feel that there is things that needs to be reported in the clash report, you do one more round of merge model review, and then you assign the responsibilities back to the different stakeholders again, and then you do a design coordination again and merge it again. So you do this several rounds until your model is fully, completely coordinated. There's no longer conflicts within the different models, and you federate it, and you have a fully coordinated model from the design, from the structural, from the mechanical, electrical, and the civil design. You combine it as a fully coordinated model, and then you go into a model called the non-editable fully coordinated model, and you start to do your quantity takeoff. You go for your tender, you bid the award, and the contractor will start the bill based on a fully coordinated model. So this is the whole, I would say, the utopian idea of having a quality check for your model. This is the ideal process that we wish to have. as a practice. And we try to practice this in school, and we also try to practice this in the industry as well. So now, after we've done our quality checking, we also need to know what kind of software is available out there for quality checking. Obviously, Autodesk Revit softwares and ArchiCAD and Tekla Structure Designer and EcoSim Building Designer, all these are authoring software. So they don't have really in-depth um, class check features. Things like Autodesk, it does have some checking, but it only does interference checking. So it will give you a HTML report at the end of the day, but it does not allow you to do comments. It does not allow you to do reviews where you can send off to your stakeholders to resolve it. So it does very preliminary checking. So what are the softwares that actually do the quality checking for class check? Naviswork, Solabri Model Checker, Tekla BIM Site, and Bentley Navigator as well. So for me, I'm both Naviswork and a Solabri Model Checker user. So I teach this to my full-time students and my part-time students as well. So later on, we will just going to run through some of these features, and I'll do a bit of comparison between the different softwares that we use. So you can see here, these are some of the families that is included in our submission templates, including the title blocks and also some of these swings for our doors. If we incorporate this into our doors, we will comply. These are some of the libraries that's developed by the authorities, which is the Building Construction Authority, and there's a barrier free access code for handicap. So we need to insert this as a family to comply with the barrier free access code. So once we have this as a door, we will comply with the regulation. So we don't have to make our own doors as well. So this is almost an automated process when we do our checking. We also have different FFSD template, different department templates, URA templates. So these are the different templates that is already embedded in our submission template as well. So sometimes we also use schedules to do our checking to make sure the standard sizing of our columns is being checked. By the scheduling, we can do conditional highlighting in Revit as well to do our checking. So these are very normal checks that we do. And the typical quality checking process that we do, this is another process that we do. Um, First, we import the various discipline models into the quality assurance software like Naviswork or Solabri Model Checker. Then we'll amend and color for each discipline for easy identification because, say, for example, MEP, you have the mechanical, you have the electrical, and you have the plumbing. So you have different trades. So therefore, it is necessary for you to do the colors so that you can identify the different trades when you're doing clashes. Then the first check that you do is usually a visual check. You have an avatar inside your Naviswork and you just walk around your building and to see that everything is in order. And then you add comments and save views. And then the next step is then you move on to a deeper check where you do automated class check in Naviswork or in Solabri Model Checker. And then you meet up with the team. And then when you send out your HTML to the various party, you will start to discuss the issues and start to assign responsibilities. And then eventually you generate reports for the visual check and the automatic check. And the whole process starts again after you have done your checking again, you amend it, you revised it, then you go back to your assurance and the whole process starts again. So this is how we do quality assurance processes with more in-depth project review software like Naviswork or Solabri Model Checker. So now I'm just going to go into the BIM quality assurance model checking with Naviswork. So I'm just going to quickly pull out Naviswork. Um, okay, so this is a model that I have already appended a structural model and an archi model. So this is actually a model that I have modeled for myself for the student to practice on. It's one of our teaching blocks. So you can see that by doing a visual check, sometimes you can notice that the structural beam is actually deeper and is eating into our architectural windows. Sometimes we can also do, um, let me see now. So if we add a third person, we can actually add in the avatar. I think some of us are familiar with Naviswork. So when we start to add in realism, we can add in crouch and gravity so that you can start to walk on the model itself. So I'm just going to move in a bit more. so that then I can start to walk around in the model. Oops. So this is the kind of visual check that we can do to allow our avatar to walk around in our building. So, so say for example, I'm just gonna. So you can see that sometimes when you walk around, you uh, get obstructed. So and you can go up the stairs, and sometimes you can see your window whether if it is the correct size, or whether if anything is happening with. So the size of this window, initially when I had this window, it was actually intersecting with the landing. So these are some of the checks that you can actually go around your building and make sure that everything is in order. So this is the first process that you do as a visual check. Then subsequently, when you go to your clash check, you can start to add a test. So I already appended two models, so I can choose both models, and then I make sure that it's a hard clash check. So then I run a test, and by the time it runs the test, it will give me 5,000. In this case, it's almost 8,000 kind of clashes. Now, of course, when I clash this, there's no proper order to this. We should be clashing, there should be an order to this, because by the time you do this kind of clash, you got 8,000 of clashes, which I always tell my student, by the time you have 8,000 clashes, you probably just want to shut down your computer and go home, because you can't even tell which are the genuine clashes, right? So proper matrix should be done, like for example, slab with slab, or columns with columns. So this should be done by a step-by-step matrix that you should do. So you can see that, let me pull out, I think before this I actually did some, let me see now. Let me see if I can go to clash number 5306. In this case, I already saved a view, I think. Can't tell. So you can see that now in this particular clash, it shows a beam that goes below the window, and this is a genuine clash. So what we can do, we can always save this as a view. And once we save this as a view, um, we can then do our necessary markup in our review, and then we can start to draw, um, to cloud it, and then we can add comments. We can add a comment to this, right? You can add a tag as well. Okay, sorry. So I add a comment. So I say beam clashing with window, and then you click OK. So then you get your comments that is here. So you find all your clashes one by one. You go through exactly what is the issue um, before you add in your comments. So once you have done that, basically you can go to your. So I'm just gonna close this very quickly. Let me go to my review again. And then you can, sorry, I don't know what's wrong with the, okay, so once you're done that, you can just write a report, and you can save it as a, let me see now. I save it as a HTML tubular, and then I write a report. Then I can save it on my desktop. Usually I like to give a date, and then I'll save it. So take a while to write the file. So in the meantime, I was writing because it's writing 8,000 over clashes. So when it writes, it takes a while. But I'm just going to show you what the kind of format it appears. But in the meantime, while we are waiting, I'm just going to show another feature of Naviswork as well. So I also have mentioned earlier on about using Naviswork to use timeline construction as well. So this could be something we can test our student in terms of making this construction sequence. So in the past, this is not so much about quality checking, but more of a construction coordination process. In the past, we used to have Gantt chart and tell, excavation is from which date to which date, and then we'll do our substructure from which date to which date, and then for superstructure is from which date to which date. And oftentimes, our contractors always like to pull a fast one on us with the Excel sheet. It's always a very abstract Excel sheet and tell us the construction sequence, but it doesn't really relate to what's happening on site. But with this kind of construction sequence, you can really tell, you can actually measure this up together with your site. And you know exactly what is going on in terms of the construction. So I have already added some, I have already saved some sets that I've done here, and and I have already attached them as part of the construction. So when I simulate, when I play, so it will start to do the construction process for us and show the slab and the walls and the building pads. Okay, I only done the first floor construction. So then you can actually export it as a AVI for yourself. And how the AVI actually looks like is this is the kind of you can actually export it as a video. So this could be something that we can test our students if we want to as part of the for the BIM competition as well, to show the construction sequence. So they can export it as well eventually as a AVI. So this is something that Naviswork is very good at. In Singapore, we call this virtual design and construction. This is all part of our BIM processes. So um, now let's get back to our report. I think it's still running. I think it has hung. So I'll just have to wait for it to run in the meantime. But let's go back to our PowerPoint. So I've shown some of the capabilities of our Naviswork. So this is how the report is actually going to look like. Unfortunately, the thing has hanged. So it will give you all the thumbnails of all the clashes, and then it will give you the ID and the grid location. You can actually add a comment. So earlier on, I added a comment. So you can actually have this comment here, and then when you send it out to your structure engineer or your MEP engineer, they will look at this, and then they will go into the particular area and see how they can resolve that particular issue. So by having a report like that is quite useful. It's no longer the hard copy. We take our tracing paper and then we do our markup and we cloud it, and then we still have to use the photocopy machine and the Xerox machine to send it out to our clients and send it in email to our stakeholders and tell them that this is our problem. Now you with this report together with the model, you can just send it off to your various stakeholders as well, right? So um, it can also do version checking. So you can do white, red, and yellow when you do version checking and tell you what are the things that the differences are. Red is for item with differences. Yellow is for the first item, contain not found in the second item, and cyan is of course the second item, things not found in the first item as well. So it does version checking as well. So now for SolidB model checker, let me see. It's still hanging. So I've closed that program. Unfortunately, I can't show. I'll run it again later on. So for Solidbeam Model Checker, it is a slightly different software than Naviswork. It works on the now. If you use Naviswork, basically, if you are doing using Autodesk products, then it's easily imported into Naviswork very easily. But if you are doing using Solidbeam Model Checker, then you have to convert. You have to export your file as a IFC model before you can actually export it out. Into Solar Beam Model Checker. So and there's various things that you can check. You can visualize it. You can check the quality. You can check space program. You can check building codes. You can even do quantity takeoff as well. So and what are the visual checks that we do? Of course, first you have to import the IFC, then you have to do the visual checking. So we always do visual checking before we actually do the automated checking. So in this case for SMC, it can be a rule-based checking, and then of course you can present it and eventually send it off as an info. So I'm just going to show you some of these features later on in SolidBeam Model Checker. It can check components that's overlapping other components. It can check your construction types. It can check also your structure model is not the same size as your architectural window model. And then sometimes you have this kind of things that comes below your ceiling. It also will tell you if your ducting falls below your false ceiling. It also gives you distance checking as well. Later on, I'm just going to show you what I mean by distance checking. I can do a space validation. Sometimes there is minimum space. Say, for example, your handicap toilet, there is a certain area that you need to conform to, and it doesn't conform, and you also identify it for you as well. So even sometimes the volume, it doesn't touch properly and align properly, it will tell you as well. And then of course your space schedule. Sometimes your handicap inside a handicap toilet, you need a 1 meter turning radius. So this will also highlight if you don't have that 1 meter as well. So basically, I think clash detection softwares is basically checking the model checking the virtual model. A lot of times when I was a project manager, the thing is already constructed on site. By the time you realize the problem, you have to hack it, and it becomes very abortive, and it will impede your time, your construction time. It's all messy, and everybody gets stressed. So with checker like SMC and Naviswork, basically it helps you eliminate those stresses in the virtual model before you actually get it built on site. So I'm just going to very quickly pull out Solibri model checker. So this is by default, this is the kind of model that you get in the model. So I have, let me see. Okay, I have already appended some MEP services, which is the aircon ducting in here. So in the model, you can see that I already have all the ground vents and the first floor vents that is already in here. So normally when I check, I would hide my windows. So all my windows get hidden. Sometimes it's still obstructing my view, then I will also hide my walls as well. So I get this kind of skeletal condition. So then I can even do a walk around. I can walk around in my model, um, and walk around in my model as well, right? So I can even climb up the stairs as well if I want to check around my model as well. So it's quite similar to Naviswork as well. It also allows you to walk around in the model and check all the various ducting in the premium spaces as well. So this is how you do your visual checking. Sometimes there's also a gaming view that you do. So often I joke with my students, where's my support? And I see my enemy, and my enemy is always the clashes. So so just to add a bit of fun in the learning process as well. So yeah, so can even spin it around and do a gaming around. Yeah, so you can see that there's clashes here. So if let's say if I go to the checking tool, and by default, if you already have some rule sets that it's assigned to me, and this role sometimes is already given in the roles, and I can pick what is necessary to do my checking. And in this case, I've chosen BIM coordination, and this is by default the kind of rule set that it will come together with the checking. And when it checks, I'll just check the model, and I'll check, and you can see that when it's red is very critical, orange is intermediate, and then if sorry, red is critical, and then yellow is not so critical, and then um, yeah, sometimes some of those axes and tell you that this is really critical situation. So you can see that this particular uh, s- um, um, piping or elbow is actually penetrating through the ceiling. So this is going to be a problem for us. So immediately we can do a markup as well. So we can do a markup as well in the model, and we can also add some comments if we want to, you know, clash with Dutting, and then I click OK, and that's a clash for me. Once I've done that, I can also sometimes go to, let's see now. Okay, there's two here. So if there's two here, maybe I will just quickly do a markup here as well. Yeah, so automatically it becomes a slide that I can capture. It's same like saving views. So I can even add, so it will even give me an automated description. So I can also say this is rejected, this is open. I can say that this is at a schematic design stage. I can assign responsibility to the architect. I can edit an MEP as well and get them sorted out. And then I will add a comment from me, please resolve. I could be the BIM manager and tell the architect and the MEP, please resolve this area, you know, and then this becomes an issue. And then when I go to here, when I add a presentation, I can click from the results, and then it'll give me the same thing as well, these two views that I have saved earlier on. So the way how you save the view is a bit different, but at the end of the day, both software allows you to save your view, add comments, and put things in, so that you can then send it off as a report. So when you do a report, you can send it off as an Excel or a PDF. It's not in HTML format. So let's say if I export it as a Excel and I save it, hopefully it doesn't hang, and I save as. And then it will give me this Excel sheet, and you can see that, you know, it will tell me the issue description, and then what's my comment, who is responsible at it, and what stage it is. And sometimes you can add in dates and label and whatnot into the checking software as well. So it's quite incredible when you are able to automate this whole process as well. Now there's also another wonderful thing about Solibri Model Checker uh, as well. There's a rule set manager. Basically, you can write your own rules. And when you write your own rules, you can essentially choose some from the standard rules from here. So when you get to the rules, there's some standard rules that is already as a library by default. So let's say, for example, I choose component distance. I want to check headroom. So what I do is I will just add this into here, and then I'll put this as a rule set here. So I'll just use this as a default, but I'll make some changes to it. So let's say I choose distance directly above, because I want to check headroom. And then I'll say allowed maximum, required minimum distance, say maybe I put a distance of 2.2 meters, for example, for headroom. Um, And then I will start to add my source component. Say for example, I add, so there's different kind of components that you can add. You can add a beam, you can add another component called, maybe this time around I'll choose a slab, and I click OK. Then I'll add some more, maybe some of the air conditioning, air terminal as well. And maybe I'll add one more, say, uh, dot. And then maybe I also add one more suspended ceiling as well. So these are some of the components I want to check in terms of headroom. Okay, so once I'm okay, um, I'm done. All right, so I can save this rule set later on. Maybe this I can recycle for my other projects as well. This is my standard checking. So maybe I'll call this head maybe I'll call this headroom rule set and save as. And then when I go back to my file, maybe I rename this. See, wonder if I can rename this guy. Oh yeah, I can rename it here. Okay, the headroom. Oops. Okay, I can only, yeah, headroom. Okay, so once I go back to my file, I go back to my checking. Um, I have a new rule set that is here. So let's, oh, I should have done it with the other model. Sorry. Um, so I should have done it with the other model. Let me see my checking. Okay, so I have done one here already. So let's say I want to check my model. And once I check my model, these are my results. And then it will start to give me, uh, you know, uh, I need a 2.2 headroom, and then it will start to show me, um, they start to show me the different, the height that actually don't comply. So then these are the areas that I need to resolve. So it's quite nice because you can actually write your own rule set. I tried to experiment this with my student to write my own rule sets, because a lot of our teachers, we make our students do mock submissions so that we can practice them on complying with the different regulatory bodies. So, but the thing, when the students submit to you, we only have 6 teachers, but there's 100 students. Those to mark 100 sets of submission sets is very, very tedious for us. So I'm trying to come up with some rule sets so that I can write to make everybody's life better, so that we don't have to do so much checking, and we have this automated checking to do the checking for us, and then we can score accordingly. So yeah, so that's basically what a solidly model checker can do for us. I think that's pretty much comes to the end of my presentation on quality checking. Yeah, so I hand it back to you, Alexi.
Okay, thank you very much. So to me, it was very interesting uh, presentation. Maybe one question, if you're talking about your university, how long is your course, yeah, for this quality check and last? How many hours?
Okay, so for our we because we teach two software, so
Mhm,
Naviswork used to be an elective, so it used to be a 2 week elective, but now
mhm,
it has gone full swing. So we have 15 lectures on Naviswork checking. So what I've shown you is just the Naviswork class check.
mhm,
Within
mhm,
Naviswork, there's also things like rendering, and
mhm,
there's render. So these are some of the things that we are beginning to add in a bit more for the students learning as well on this particular software. Now, so for Solidity Model Checker, I teach it in part-time. It's a 9 hour module. So
mhm,
I teach it to my part-time students, and we do it in the evening, 3 hours per night. We will teach this particular software on the SMC. Basically, to teach them on the interface, teach them how to do class check and add
Mhm.
comments and do markups as well. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, dear expert, please, you can write your question either in chat or you can really unmute yourself and ask your question. It's really right now, it's Q&A session. It's free to ask.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Morning,
Uh,
morning.
Hi, Alexei.
Hi,
Yes,
Bruno.
congratulations for your presentation. I really enjoy watching you talk about this subject. And I have one question actually. I have never used Solibri, and used just a little bit the Navisworks. But I would like to know which of these tools do you prefer to use in the actual application of the work of the compatibilization?
This is a very interesting question. A lot of times, a lot of industry people ask me this question: what kind of software, and not just Solibri and Navis, but what kind of software should we be using for certain purposes? I always tell them it should be for the purpose suited for your own needs. So every software has their own advantages and disadvantages. And in this case, if you are using if your company is using Autodesk product, then obviously it's better to go with Naviswork. But of course, if you go with Naviswork, then there are certain things that Solibri can do, Naviswork can't. Say for example, you want to design your own rule set. It's not possible in Naviswork. There are some predetermined fixed things that you can do, but it's still very rigid. But if you want to design your own rule set to check your model, then of course I will recommend SMC. But the thing is, SMC you have to export your model as IFC. So if you have Autodesk products like Revit, then obviously you have to export it at ISC. And the thing is, Autodesk, when you export to ISC, it takes at least a few hours. If your project is very very big, it will probably take 1 day. So converting it to IFC also will result in your model not exported properly. Things like, for example, you have a faceted you have a facade, but when you export it, it might end up faceted, which is not what you want. So these are some of the disadvantages you have if you were to be using SMC, if you are coming from an Autodesk product. However, if you are using Graphisoft ArchiCAD, then obviously when you export it to IFC, it's a lot easier because ArchiCAD export to IFC is a lot friendlier, and there's a lot more options for you to choose, right? And it's a lot faster as well, unlike the Autodesk way of exporting to IFC, because Autodesk prefer you to use back their own same product as well. So Graphisoft products are a bit more open beam friendly. So I would recommend that, depending on your company or your organization, if you are using certain products, then stick with the same product. But if you are working with different stakeholders, say for example, your architect uses ArchiCAD and then your engineers uses Autodesk product like Revit, then obviously you have no choice. You still have to export it as an IFC before you can actually bring it into Naviswork, or you bring it into Solibri Model Checker to do your checking. So, but for preference, as a personal preference, I personally prefer SMC, because the interface feels a bit more architectural because I'm an architect. So I like the interface, the fonts, the colors. It's a little bit more intuitive than Naviswork. Yeah, yeah. I hope that answer your question, Bruno.
You sure did. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I have one comment to this.
Yeah,
Sure.
yes, sir.
Yeah, the question it's really important, but from the university point of view, I'm not aware, Bruno, whether you're a university guy or not, but at last in Poland we had a real problem to get Solibri on the campus. The company doesn't want to give education licenses, so we fortunately have, for the second year, we have 45 or 50 licenses for our students and the staff. But it's I don't understand this, but Navisworks, everybody, every student, every teacher can have for free, and this is the policy that really changes the point of view from the university perspective, because well, commercial license, it's really the expensive software, and if you need like 20 or 50, yeah, I'm not sure how it's in Singapore, but but in Europe, I mean, Poland belongs to Finnish main chapter of the company, and they say no education, no reason, we don't see any reason, and you know. And another comment is also this IFC really limits your chance to add terrain model like land XML files or whatever, GML. So if you'd like to coordinate linear projects for road infrastructure, bridges, tunnels, and you have GIS data sets, well, unfortunately, Solibri won't help you. Then Navisworks, who is, I don't know, 30 or 40 formats, different formats. It's really an open platform, even though the formats are native or mainly native. So thanks.
Yeah, I will answer your second question. So usually for road alignments or infrastructure modeling, I think because it's GIS, it usually uses softwares like context capture in Bentley to make sure that your alignment is actually done correctly and do the necessary checking as well. So I think capture already does that checking for you in terms of alignment for bridges or for roads, from what I understand from the software. I'm not sure if it still uses Naviswork to help you to check for alignment as well. Most probably you still use Naviswork to check for between your services and your structure load bearing components when you are checking the two disciplines. But usually for alignment, they uses context capture or point clouds to actually do the or lidar scanning on the ground. Then they will put it in point cloud to check the alignment in InfraWorks or in context capture. Now, for educational license in Singapore, because I started off trying to bring in ArchiCAD into our lab, into our learning environment. So from that relationship, slowly we started to teach our student on SMC as well. So when we discussed this with the vendor actually extended the educational licenses to us via emails. So what he did was they gave me 40 licenses as educational, but I as an administrator, and I will lock in my student email so that when they fire off the software, they have to type in the email with the password. So what I did was I made 40 mock emails with a standard password like 12345, so that when the student log in, they will log in using the email that I've made with the password that is in. Then they will type it in. Then they will be able to practice on in the lab condition, but they won't be able to install it in their laptops because it needs the email to send you the driver in order to be installed in your laptop or into your desktop. So that becomes a protection to us, that the student won't abuse the licenses and use it for commercial purposes. So this was a agreement between us and the vendor. So I'm not sure whether if you can go down the same way. This is how we actually got our educational license from the vendor. So he gave me the administrator rights, gave me 40 licenses. I go in and assign and I will assign the different licenses to the different students. Yeah, I hope that answers some of your queries that you have.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, this is the same. We also work with a Polish vendor, I mean, representative of Solibri. We've got 45 or 50 licenses, and I also administer. It's exactly the same pattern. So I just when I say it's not that easy to have Solibri on campus, and probably my university is the second in Poland that has it, or third.
Yeah.
So they're not very eager to share this software with academia, which is bad. I don't understand this. we
Yeah.
form students. If they know the tool, they will, require it from its employees when they're on the market. So it's,
Yeah. So this is my
yeah,
my
yeah, it's the same. I
my
use
saying.
also, I'm also the administrator, so I use
Yeah.
these administrative
This the admin
tools.
view that you
Yes,
get.
it's
Yeah.
online license management tool from
Yeah.
the Solibri. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it is this and the tedious part is every time my student cohort change, I have to I have to deploy this. I have to change my password one by one, and there's 40 of them, and it's extremely tedious. Then and I teach this every half a year. It is so troublesome. Yeah, it is
Yes,
unlike like Autodesk. They give you the educational license, quite easily.
yes,
But
this
now
is
now
this is
Autodesk giving educational license also has become a bit much more difficult. Now you have to take photo of your student pass before they actually release the license to you. This has gotten a bit stricter now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So, dear expert, please go ahead with your questions.
Chris,
Yeah.
one more question.
Yeah.
About the checking. Do you have you ever tried to use some kind of visual programming or developing or TypeScript language to do the checking of the model? Because I've seen some works that have already used Dynamo with Navisworks, and I would like to know if you have ever tried something like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is I have not gone down that to explore using the script. I've seen just now earlier on when I did the clash, it shows 8,000 over clashes. Say for example, you want to look for issues, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack because there's so many clashes and you don't know which one is actually genuine. So sometimes writing a script can actually pinpoint and focus the different clashes for you very easily, rather than you going into the model one by one and check it, right? So I see the advantages of using the script, but unfortunately, I don't have the time to actually explore this part. Yeah. So this is some area that I will want to go into as well. Yeah, to use to write the script. Yeah. Yeah. But in the future, if I do get into the area, I would share with you.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah. So just in the meantime, you all think about questions. Actually, Revit itself also can do interference checking as well, we can also do visual checking by coloring the different um, um, the models in the visibility graphics. Sometimes we can also do very preliminary checking if you want to. So sometimes I color my structural columns as green, and then whatever links that I bring in my structure model, I'll change it to yellow. I mean, change it to red. Then when I overlay them, then I'll do section boxing to actually do to see the kind of issues that we have as well. Yeah, and there's also, if I'm not wrong, interference checking as well. You can run an interference check as well. You can do column to column, and it does the same thing. Um, and then you'll churn out the report for you as well. Yeah. So in the authoring software, it has very preliminary checking for you as well. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Uh, how many BIM courses in your school? I mean, in Singapore, like normally we try to combine shop drawing and BIM courses together, and usually it costs us like 4 hours for each week, and for 18 weeks, and the time we can only teach modeling, and we still have no time to teach Navy's work. So in your point, in Singapore, how long do you think to teach a student become a qualified BIMer?
Okay. So we teach BIM in our course is a 3-year course. It's a diploma course, and we have architecture, civil engineering, landscape design, interior design. in our course, and we teach BIM courses in all our courses, and all BIM courses takes about 15 weeks. But in between, we also have other things that we teach, like for example, Lumion, 3D Studio Max in some of our ID courses. For our civil engineering, we teach the modeling, solely just modeling. For landscape as well, we also just teach modeling and Lumion. And then for architecture, which I'm in that particular diploma, we teach modeling skills to the student for 15 weeks. Now for Nevis work, there's some currently our diploma for architecture is undergoing some changes. So Nevis work now in the past was, as I mentioned earlier on, was done for a 2-week elective program. So recently we have made this as a 15-week program for Nevis work learning. So then the student will also learn about not just about modeling software, but also software to do class check as well. So for I also teach part-time, and in part-time course, we teach Nevis work on a 9-hour night training, 3 hours per night training. And we also teach Nevis work fully in our construction management module as well, where we teach the student how to do planning with Naviswork and how to do coordination work using Naviswork on site as well. So that takes about roughly about I would say maybe if I'm not wrong, about 16 lessons. So 16 times 3, maybe about 48 hours for the Naviswork for the part-time. Yeah, so how we distinguish between the two is that the student just need to learn in full time how Naviswork work as a software, but whereas in the part time we are teaching students how to manage the project using Naviswork. So one is manage work, the other management, the other one is just learning how to use the software. That's all. Yeah, so we distinguish the two. Yeah. So for the
Okay,
nighttime
thank you.
is what we call a specialist diploma in BIM management. Yeah.
Okay, so what in Singapore, I mean, in your school, maybe you try to combine different kind of software in one courses, right?
For our specialist diploma in BIM management, we teach roughly about 8 to 9 softwares. Yeah, around
Okay,
there. Yeah,
okay,
yeah. So
cool.
we teach that number of softwares to the students. So we teach Cos X, SMC, Naviswork, Autodesk Insight, Rhino, Grasshopper, Dynamo, of course Revit, ArchiCAD. So about 8. And then of course there's also Enscape, VR Collab, some of this rendering BIM softwares as well. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Next.
The expert is someone has additional question. In meantime, Chris, so really when you started your presentation coming from the from your country requirements, okay, I have immediately many questions, but it's not, I guess we cannot touch that all question right now, just because I really want to know about the format, how who hold the models. Is it really how it's the model, walks through the building a lifetime, how, because it's changed. So, I mean, that is really maybe from my point of view, maybe if you could really do additional presentation about really the BIM mandate and BIM processes, how it works in Singapore, because to me it's really what's right now happens in Russia, but also the government is really try to somehow establish that. So it's really a little bit chaotic process because they don't know what to do. But if you can really see from your perspective, and as understood, you really as you mentioned today, you was really on the construction side, so you know the hard side of the job, and from what requirements and your education, and really what is right now, and maybe what you would change, improve, or do better. Let's say what should be really the used from the government, what it's really works, and let's say the best model as possible. So it's really my maybe request to you, but uh, I see that what's happening in Russia, and I don't know how about other countries, but that is really, there are many questions about that part of our activities.
Yeah,
I
sure.
would
I
I would be
can.
interested too, Chris, because I also work for all these standardization initiatives in Poland. So, by the way, did you manage to switch to ISO 19650 with all these manuals, or it's still like the previous versions from 2015 or 16 when they were published were based on rather British BIAS 1192 standards?
So currently our BIM standards are not according to ISO 19650. When it was established in 2010, it didn't refer, because 19650 is quite a very recent thing.
Yeah,
So
yes.
so by the time ISO 19650 came out, Singapore has already established a certain standard for the industry to use locally. So some companies actually refer to 19650. They adopt it within their organization for themselves to use. So, but the baseline still comes from the Singapore BIM guide. So they further refine it by adapting to the 19650, and and recently, there's also an initiative within the regulatory bodies uh, is to standardize the nomenclatures of how we actually name our model, name our rooming, how we actually model. There's actually a standard that they are working on, because eventually they want everybody to send in their submission, the model, and automatically checked, so without an officer actually looking at your model. So through submission and through machine learning, they will actually check your model and tell you where it doesn't comply. So because of that kind of checking that we are going towards for automated checking for regulatory compliances, or the way how we model our model and the way how we name our model in the spaces. Some people call toilets, but we should actually call it as bathroom. So they are trying to standardize the naming. So because of this, we are developing, Singapore is developing its own standard as well. So 19650, I think, in my opinion, will become a reference standard, because the way where we are heading towards, the BIM culture that we have in Singapore will veer away from whatever global standard that is out there. But it doesn't stop the company from adapting from the 16650. They can always cherry pick the good parts of 19650 and adapt it into their own office practice. Yeah, yeah. And I think one of those areas they can actually adapt is facility management. I think those areas they can actually take it on, because currently Singapore um, is still a bit weak in terms of BIM for facility management. And there's a recent hype in talking about digital twin. So I think eventually they might want to adapt the 19650. I never know, but there are some companies already is using 19650. When I talk to some of these companies, yeah,
Okay, thanks.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chris. So I think, is there any other questions? So I don't see any question, but Chris, thank you very much. It was really interesting discussion, and I also agree with Jacek about the price for Solibri. I additionally checked during the presentation. It's also very, yeah, expensive software, but as I also know, it has some advantage like very advanced scripting language. Okay, for all skills they are okay to give us one license, but not more. So that's why we use Navisworks, and yeah. So but thank you very much, and you see we even found potential in our proposal for you to have a next presentation.
Sure,
Which,
I can pull out
yeah,
the kind of standards that we have.
yeah.
Then
Yeah.
I can go through the process of having
Yeah.
to implement it, executing it, the
Yeah.
different guides that will help us.
Yeah.
Basically, it's so heavily regulated, and Singapore is so there's a lot of hand holding, which I think is good for the industry as well. So they came out with
Mhm.
many guides for the different disciplines to follow. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. But personally, there's some when I follow the guides, I still prefer some of the Autodesk templates lah.
Mm.
But of course, I can show you some of the guides and,
Mhm. Mhm.
and illustrate what are the need to do in order for
Mhm.
you to adopt a BIM, and what are the standards that you're supposed to look out for. Yeah,
Mhm.
but it's definitely going to be different from the 19650.
Okay. Okay. But it's really, I think it will be really useful for us to know. Okay, dear expert, in that case, I'm closing our today's session. Uh, you are welcome to submit your proposal, because we during the last session we talked about Ricardo, Bruno, Jacek. I remember Anna wanted to do some presentation. I think it was one proposal from Leon. So please reach me to propose your idea. Uh, that session will be recorded. I'll send to our colleagues recorded version. I'll put it into the YouTube, just because to have it more or less the constant link. And I also right now see interested from our expert in Russia to join our session, or at least see recording. And so we're not really closed community. You can really you're free to invite some of your colleagues to join our conversation. Okay, it was really great to see great people today. Friday afternoon, at least in Russia afternoon. And I hope we will have soon our next meeting. I hope in November. Yeah. So I want to wish to all of you stay healthy in spite of that second wave of COVID, and what you will really have success in your uh, professional life, and we will have future regular meetings online and after offline. Okay, see you.
Yo, bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a nice
Bye.
weekend.
Yeah, you
Bye.
too.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.